Hi, I'm Jeff Ranke, Editorial Director of Manufacturing.net and Manufacturing Business Technology. Welcome to Security Breach. This is usually where I dive into some recent attacks or stats to help set up the topic that our guest for the episode will be covering. I'm going to deviate from this today because when it comes to the issues surrounding quantum computing and the impact on industrial cybersecurity, I think it's better to simply get right into the conversation. However, before we do that, we're excited to announce that Security Breach is being sponsored by Pentera. For more information on how automated security validation can help you safely test all your IT security controls with a click of a button in a non-stop industrial operational environment, visit Pentera.io. It's now my pleasure to introduce Skip Sanzeri and Paul Fuegner from QuSecure. Skip is the company's co-founder, and Paul serves as the Director of Corporate Communications. Skip and Paul, thanks for joining us today, and welcome to Security Breach. Starting right at the beginning, I noticed something on the website, and maybe Skip, you want to take this one to start, but it said, we know the quantum threat is real, we know it's preventable. So kind of starting the conversation there, maybe you can kind of talk to us a little bit about the quantum computing threat and why it's such a big deal in terms of industrial cybersecurity.
Absolutely, Jeff. Thanks for having us on. So first, we'll start with a little bit of background on quantum computing, and I'll give everybody their theoretical physics degrees here. So you're all going to get certificates. So quantum computing is a new form of compute. It's different than the zeros and ones that we've used. So if you think about it, the way that our computers work today, that was a human construct. So humans came up with the idea of, hey, let's do zeros and ones. And we have computers that work pretty well, right? Got those. One of the problems is that these computers are running out of steam. The efficiencies are sort of diminishing. And in essence, the world needs a new form of compute. We need to be able to launch to the next level because what's happening is they're fitting so much on the chip sizes now that their electrons are interfering with each other. There's heat problems and a myriad of issues. Quantum computers use subatomic properties, which are things like superposition, entanglement. We can do more on those later, but what there are ways that things work that we're not used to. Superposition says that things can be in all places at the same time. Entanglement means you can take a couple subatomic particles, you can separate them by a universe, and yet they'll still stay connected. And you can, when you reverse spin on one across the universe at an instant, not based on the speed of light, the other one reverses spin. These properties are what drive quantum computing. Quantum computing is in its early stages. However, the promise is that it will be very, very powerful, and it will solve key problems. And the types of problems it solves, Jeff, are going to be multivariate problems. So think of things where you've got a lot of variables to handle. Things like weather prediction, genomics, material science, protein folding, aeronautical design. I mean, when they design an aircraft, they have to account for every single molecule that hits the wings, every single one. That's a lot of variables, right? So quantum computers are great at that. Now, one of the things they're really good at as well is they're really good at breaking the encryption that we're all using today. So even this session that we're on with you is encrypted by standard cryptography that, by the way, was invented in the late 70s. And quantum computers have the capability, due to the way they process with the subatomic versions, they can break right through that cryptography when they're powerful enough. So our U.S. government has recognized this. Biden signed into law in December an initiative that said that all of our federal agencies have to upgrade to what they're calling post-quantum cryptography. What that is, it's new cryptography because they know that when quantum computers get here, they're going to break what we have. So this is the problem set that exists today. Basically, there's a train wreck coming, and everybody knows it. It may be a few years away. But a lot of people are starting to move now because it's going to take a long time to upgrade. And by the way, all of the cryptography in the world that's used for public key, which is the internet, anybody who's on the internet in the world has to upgrade the cryptography and upgrade the devices. 20 billion devices need to upgrade. It's the biggest upgrade cycle in computer history coming. So that's kind of what we're up against here.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, 20 billion devices, that's that's obviously kind of mind-blowing, and that's probably not even taking into account really on the industrial sector, all of the connected machinery on the plant floor and how that's just going to extrapolate with the Internet of Things hitting it and Industry 4.0 technologies. So when we look at the industrial sector, what are some of the unique challenges maybe? Because I think quantum computing might be something people are thinking about. Hey, I saw the Avengers movies. That's not me. That doesn't apply. But obviously it does, especially when we've got this landscape, this threat landscape that continues to grow and expand. So looking specifically at the plant floor and the industrial sectors, what is a lot of this encryption issues? What does this mean to them, I guess?
Sure, I'll get a start, and then Paul, jump in here as well. When you think about it, Jeff, all of those control systems, right? When you're talking about all the control systems that control all the machines, all of the logistic devices, and of course, just even standard Wi-Fi and IoT, all of that is vulnerable. And by the way, manufacturing logistics, no different than any other industry, because we've all standardized on this type of encryption. And it's been fine for our 0 and 1 computers we're using. Now things get hacked once in a while, got it, and it's not good. But it has generally worked so far. Quantum computers will change that. Paul, you want to add to that?
Yeah, thanks, Skip. Jeff, one of the things I was thinking about when you were asking that question is, what do we do at our core root here at QuSecure? We're all about safety and security. And when you dial that back to a lot of the manufacturing, supply chain issues that you and your viewers are talking about and doing in their daily jobs, it boils down to a lot of that same thing. It's about making sure what you're doing is in a secure, safe environment. And very often in manufacturing, that's considered physical, the physical machinery that you might be doing. And that's clearly very, very important. It has been for forever. But when you look at what we're doing in more of the digital realm, that security around data is equally important to the physical safety that you and a lot of your viewers are dealing with, because the fact that we're in a digital society now, and everyone that's born today is what they call a digital native, they're dealing with data on such a regular basis, and it influences our jobs, whether they be in supply chain, manufacturing, or technology or finance. Data is such a strong component on making our society work and our businesses, including yours, that what we do, and as Skip has pointed out, from the classical to the quantum encryption is vitally important. So just a reflection on how our concepts of safety and security flow over into just about any industry, including all those that you and your viewers are particularly working in.
Interesting. I've got so many questions flowing through my brain here right now, but trying to keep them in order here a little bit. So when we look at the industrial sector, we're still trying to catch up with a lot of the attackers and a lot of how organized and specific they can be and how good they are getting into these OT networks. We look at things from the quantum perspective that feels like it's down the road a little bit. So how should industrial cybersecurity specialists prioritize things in terms of looking at where their networks are right now and keeping them secure, but also keeping an eye to the future and how the quantum element is going to fit in?
Yeah, there are a variety of reasons to start looking at this now, Jeff. And this is self-serving, so I get it. But whether it's, our company or any company, you need to start looking at upgrading cryptography. So let me take a step back. So we're talking about the quantum threat. And the quantum threat, as we've discussed, we have some time in that sense. And I'll tell you 2 reasons why we need to act now. One is that the data, as Paul was saying, is one component of what can get stolen. Now, you can also take over systems and control systems, and that's a whole separate issue. But let's talk about data. If data gets stolen today, it's probably encrypted. But if someone has a quantum computer, they'll be able to decrypt that data in coming years. And if that data still is valuable, if it needs 10, 15, like if you think of banking information, 25 years, military nuclear secrets, 50 years, healthcare information, 75 years of protection, that's all going to be laid bare. And that means if you've got 5, 10, 20, or 30 years of value left on that data and it's decrypted, well, then hackers or nefarious they can do what they want with that data. So one reason to move now is because things that get stolen today will be decrypted tomorrow. That could be valuable information. That could be a real problem. The other issue that has come about that all of your viewers know about, we all know about, is AI. This is a mess. I am scared to death of AI. I don't know if you saw just yesterday or day before, all the articles about Worm GPT. So now the hackers have their own chat GPT. that is specifically labeled for hacking, right? So they're going to use all of these tools, just like technology over time, it always is used for, harm and disruption first before it's even used for anything good. It's going to happen with AI. This is coming at us at a speed that's amazing. And guess what? As I said earlier, we're still working on cryptography that was built in the 70s. Now we've increased key sizes in fairness, but that's been from the 70s. And so you're looking at now vectors like AI coming in, plus data getting stolen and decrypted later against encryption from the 70s. So my point is, companies have to look at upgrading cryptography anyway, whether for quantum or any other reason. Let's get out of the 70s and let's get into the new cryptography that NIST, our National Institute of Standards and Technology, is approving. They're saying, here's a new cryptography, everybody. You should start using this because we know that it can handle any of the issues that are coming instead of the old cryptography.
A couple of follow-ups to that. I think one of the biggest issues with OT cybersecurity is once the attacker gets in, it's being able to see them and kick them out. That dwell time is such a big issue because a lot of times hackers are sitting in there, they hit somebody for a ransomware attack, then they lay low for about 8 months, and then they do it again. Maybe you could talk about how some of these quantum computing solutions could help rectify that situation and sort of improve OT cyber visibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the moment, most of the quantum computing, at least in the cyber sense, post-quantum cyber is focused on securing communications. And I'll tell you why. So communications really means anytime data moves. So think of any data movement. Now that could be over the internet, that could be via satellite, that could be other point-to-point, or it could be even on an internal system between servers, on some infrastructure network. But either way, we're focused largely on data that's moving and securing the communication channels. So because those are the things that are open, like this channel we're on now is open. Somebody could grab this data. Now they may not be able to decrypt it, but they got it. Same with satellites, same with everything else. Satellites especially, because it's line of sight. Like you look up at a satellite, that data is just flowing down, right, and open for anybody to grab, but hopefully encrypted for, would stay for a while. But the issue then is, as we move into, as you're talking about, securing against or detecting. So we don't detect, but there's companies, up and comers. There's a group called Tech Slayers who we've partnered with. They're out of Phoenix, that now have really advanced systems that can go in and try to find people that are already in your network. And so now those folks have breached the network. They're looking around. A lot of times they're stealing things you don't even know. Like a couple of the last hacks at the federal level, the one hack they'd been in since May. The other one, I don't know if you recall, it was about a month ago. They had been in, the Russians had been inside the network for 20 years. So it's like, oh my God, well, they have everything. So yeah, it's that we would recommend deploying all the latest tools that you can to start looking at your network, making sure that you're always probing to see what looks like an anomaly, what's going wrong. Again, on the quantum side, we haven't looked at anybody that's building quantum systems yet to do that. But I will tell you, Jeff, your question is prescient because, in my belief, the only thing that's really ever going to stop quantum and AI is quantum and AI. So eventually, you will have a quantum computer on the inside that is doing with AI, that's doing all the analysis to say, okay, where are we going to get attacked? Who's attacking where? Think of, it's like zone defense, right? It's always, that's the only thing that's really going to stop that whole initiative. Now that's down the road, but I think you're spot on.
Well, we talk about a lot of stuff that can definitely keep people up at night on this program or in this podcast. I think the potential of quantum in terms of identifying a lot of those very small data fluctuations that we see in the industrial sector, something going up half a degree doesn't sound like a big deal. That could be a huge deal in a chemical processing plant, and that could be leading to more nefarious hacking motives down the line. So the greater sensitivity will be a big deal there. Also, you talked about AI and how AI is what can stop AI. I know it is nerve-wracking when you think about all the things that these tools can do in the hands of the bad guys. But there's a lot of things the good guys can do with AI as well from a cybersecurity perspective. I was hoping maybe you could talk about some of the things either you're working on, you've seen, or you think could develop for the white hats when it comes to using AI tools.
I think when you look at what QSecure can offer and the security components of AI that are built into our quantum resilience, it's a continually learning process. And what we've done is developed a system that is what we like to call crypto agile. And that means when you're looking at all of the variances that you have in your security measures, or even those measures that are measuring for you, you're looking at an ability of AI to help drastically increase the amount of active defense we have and the amount of keys that we have to be able to continually have fallback redundancy so that when there is an attack happening or when there is something happening, we are always able to recognize a new set of evaluated or encrypted keys that we can use to do that. So I think it's a brave new world for what AI is bringing, but when you develop it with quantum, it's there's a lot of potential for good as well as bad there. Skip, did you want to jump in and add any more?
Yeah, I can jump on that too. So Jeff, essentially, as Paul was describing, idea being that you need AI to predict and change things because humans aren't fast enough. So an example in our product, we've built AI in, so you actually can change cryptography now, and you can move it so that if, let's say, on the NIST algorithms, these are the new crypto NIST is doing, for instance, they have 4 new algorithms it looks like they're going to approve. You need to be able to use all 4, and you need to be able to use different key sizes. You need to be able to switch those. And AI can do that as it looks and says, okay, wait, I see a vector open out here. Let me upgrade that cryptography. Let me switch this over here because I think there's a DDoS attack over there. And that's how you're going to use it. You're going to use it. And again, I go back to, you asked earlier, Jeff, why do people need to do this now? Because you think about it, the existing encryption is like a flat file. It's like an Excel file versus an Oracle database. 2 different worlds. Excel file is flat. Oracle database is relational, right? You can do tons of stuff. Our existing encryption is flat. It's a single mathematical transaction. It's not changeable. You're not changing crypto at all now. All you're doing is leaving your own stuff there and hoping it works. You've got to get into new cryptography and be able to change it and have it automatically change via AI or machine learning on the fly. That's how you're going to build defenses against AI, because those vectors that the bad guys are using with AI, they're going to get stronger and faster and better and smarter. And this is why, again, we can't wait around. Any of your companies listening to this podcast, start looking at new cryptography today. You've got to start embracing it, because you don't want to get caught behind that tsunami like Paul's talking about. We can't emphasize enough that, it's kind of like, I remember seeing a meme, Jeff, you'd laugh at this, where it showed budget before cyber attack. And it showed a picture of like 3 pennies. Budget after cyber attack, like $1 million, right? In other words, you don't want to budget and go, oh, well, we just got breached and lost everything, but let's put some good cryptography in now. Again, it's a new world, and it's got to be messy.
Just to add to that, Skip, it's we talk about security and playing defense. Well, you have to be on offense to be able to have a good defense in this particular case, meaning you need to start now and be proactive. It'll be too late if you wait too much longer.
No, great points. And, to kind of echo the sentiment of that, that comic, or that's the gift that you saw. I mean, we've had people come on the program and talk about investment in cybersecurity within an enterprise didn't increase until after a ransomware attack, because they have to report that stuff in a quarterly meeting, in reports, annual reports, things like that. And they don't want to deal with it, so they make the investment. It's too bad it happened after the fact, but it's at least encouraging to see that more of that is taking place at this point. One of the things I wanted to run past you guys too, and all of this stuff that you're talking about, I just want to reiterate what you said there. This is an issue now. This isn't tomorrow's problem. This is going on right now. A lot in manufacturing consider themselves smaller companies. They consider their what they're doing, their process, their products, not important enough to get the attention of hackers. We know that's not the case. We know with the way supply chains are integrated, everyone's a target. What advice would you offer to some of these smaller firms, these smaller enterprises, in terms of where do I start? Because when you start digging into cybersecurity, it can be really daunting, especially when you get into terms like quantum computing and quantum encryption. Where should they start? What's the low-hanging fruit?
Yeah, I'll start. Paul, you jump in on this as well. So the first thing to do is understand the cryptography you have in your network, okay, and where it lives, because cryptography lives in a lot of places. It can live on servers, it can live on applications, it can live on communications, and actually, I shouldn't say can. It lives on all those things. So every application, every device, every communications channel, every server has cryptography somewhere in it. You know, Cisco will have cryptography. You'll use TLS for communications between devices. IoT may have cryptography now. And by the way, there's the new initiative just came out yesterday that now there's going to be a consumer label on IoT that will give it a not a cryptographic, give it a kind of a standard rating of how secure it is. Just came out yesterday, so you can see the movement. But point is that you've got all of these different forms and places. First thing to do is begin to understand what you have and where it is. Now, you talked, Jeff, about the integration of the supply chain. Absolutely. And if you're a supplier to a larger company, whether it's automotive or it's retail, or you're in one of those, whatever you're supplying, you can bet the biggest companies in your industry are going to start changing things, and they're going to come down and they're going to make all of their vendors and all of their partners change as well. And this is, like if you're in Walmart's chain, as everybody knows, you do what they say. When they say, hey, we need this, everybody go to this, you go to that. Otherwise, you're out of the chain. But the idea being is you need to look at your own cryptography. And I will tell you, guess what? It's all quantum vulnerable because none of it was built to defend against quantum. So it's all going to be vulnerable. But first step is to start studying what you have. Second step is to look at remediation. Where am I going to start plugging the holes? Third step is to put in new crypto. And that you could do all of those things. We would suggest testing new crypto right away. It's easy to test. And with groups like ours, we can do tests in a few days for you, right? To start that. In the meantime, you can deploy some of your analysis tools to like I mentioned text layers earlier. That's a group. Those guys will go in and they'll do a red team. They'll look at your cryptography. They'll give you a report on what it is. They'll give you a report on vulnerabilities. That's how I'd say you get started. Paul?
Yeah, I just echoing what Skip was saying, that you can start small. You don't have to eat the whale in one bite. You just take a bite at a time. And some of that means, as Skip pointed out, doing a little bit of understanding of what your needs are. And if you take a particularly small piece that might be very critical information, and you just do a proof of concept maybe with it to get an understanding of how that might work in your larger system. You don't have to do a rip and replace. You don't have to pull out all of your hardware. You can use a software solution that is able to drop in and be compatible with a lot of legacy environments to be able to really see, I don't have to, as I said, eat the whale in one bite. There are solutions out there, including ours, that give you an ability to do this in a very thorough but piece by piece manner. So you're taking off small bites to recognize what the bigger picture would be. But you have to start somewhere, and starting with looking at what your architecture is, what the existing encryption systems are, and how you can build a plan and a roadmap to get there over time. It doesn't have to be a one-stop shop and you're done. It can be a journey that we could help you with.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point in terms of essentially anything we're doing right now is positive. Anything we can do to make the hacker's job a little bit more difficult in protecting your system, your data, your enterprise, it's all going to play a role, even if it's not as much as you may think it should be to start with. Just get the ball rolling and we can go from there. I think that's a great point. Wanted to kind of gauge you guys' thoughts on another topic that comes a lot in terms of cybersecurity in the industrial sector, and that's really protecting the cloud. A lot of industrial enterprises have navigated towards the cloud. They rely on it very heavily in terms of storing and sharing data, but security sometimes becomes, as surprising as it may sound, a forgotten factor. I'd love to get your thoughts in terms of what manufacturers can do to make sure their cloud is secure, or maybe just some best practices that you could pass along.
So cloud is all the rage, right? And although there is some movement to move back into say private cloud or back onto servers, but nonetheless, AWS, Microsoft, Google, IBM, they all have giant clouds, of course, and there's international ones as well, Alibaba, Baidu, and these guys. But cloud essentially is a absolute weak point for security because you're doing everything over outside communications channels. Right, so you're thinking about if you're pulling things and putting things on servers elsewhere, those are all going over standard communications with standard encryption, invented when, audience? Yes, in the 70s. And so there are some severe issues. We're working very closely with AWS. We've been approved by AWS on a variety of fronts, and we're working closely with them so that they can, look at securing the cloud and putting in this sort of cryptography and moving to the advanced stuff. For your companies, for the partners you have here, best thing to do is start looking at their cloud posture. Look at the cryptography that's being used over to access that cloud, where it might be a VPN type thing, which is, by the way, a little better, but still very hackable. And then look at things like applying post-quantum or quantum resilient cryptography to that. For instance, if it's a web-based cloud, you could actually create a quantum channel very, very easily there. It's not a problem. And as Paul was saying, with our product specifically, you don't change anything. You actually just overlay this, or you tunnel in the existing encryption. So you keep the encryption you have. Don't even change it. But in the same assessment, like we talked about just in that earlier question, Jeff, you want to assess your cloud posture and your vulnerabilities, the cryptography you're using, and talk with your cloud partner, your cloud provider, and say, look, what are you guys doing in post-quantum? How are you guys deploying new algorithms to make sure that my data is going to be safe? And the communications between your sites, your data centers and my servers, how are we going to make sure those communications are secure? We say, take some responsibility, smaller companies or companies that use the cloud, because it's going to be on you if there's a hack anyway. But the cloud providers are looking at it. I mean, they're trying to move as well. I think we need everybody on the same page to start pushing the agenda.
Makes sense.
I would just add in there real quickly that the cloud by its nature sounds porous because it's going up into the cloud, but it's essentially just a channel and a pipe that works up through there. These days, wrapped in TSL to be able to provide it. And if you look for solutions that aren't just patchwork, but ones that actually do, as Skip pointed out, have a wraparound effect and can layer over that TSL with something like a QSL environment, that can very easily and simply protect it. We've done some work in that regard with satellites, where we've proven that we can have secure channels going up through the cloud to LEO and GEO orbits to protect that data in a cloud environment. So it is possible, and it's being done right now.
Yeah, it's possible. We just need to pay attention to it. Make sure we're not just relying on Amazon or Microsoft or Google or whomever you're using to take care of it. It's a shared responsibility without a doubt. So, guys, this has been great. We've talked a lot about QuSecure and the things you guys do. We've talked about different trends that are taking place throughout cybersecurity. Anything else you'd like to add on either one of those fronts as we kind of wrap stuff up here?
I would say just what we've emphasized through the whole call. It's time now for the cryptographic upgrade. It's time to start looking at your cryptography. It's time to start thinking of change, putting in budgets. We're not saying that you need to do everything at once, but at least you know that if you start down that road, you're going to give yourself the best chance of protection. The other thing, it does become a bit of a nice branding element. For instance, if you're working with quantum safe cryptography, you could, that's not a bad press release to put out to your stakeholders or your investors, if you're public or private, and let them know, guys, we take this seriously. We're also seeing that there are companies are being held more responsible, boards are being held more responsible for cyber breaches. Now there's more reporting at the federal level. If you've been breached, it's mandatory now. It's no longer an option. These are all things that we're all saying, look, companies have got to take responsibility for this, because in the past it was kind of like, oh, we got hacked, it's bad, costs money, but nobody really gets blamed. Right. It's pretty serious now. So you want to get on the front side of it. And it's like anything else. You want to show that you're diligent. You want to show that you're ahead of the curve. Think of it as R&D and innovation. Just like you're innovating with your products and services, innovate with your security. Because if you don't innovate, then you're going to be using the old stuff. And if you use the old stuff and something happens, believe me, you're going to have people all over you saying, why didn't you do any of these things? And it can't be because we were too busy, or I don't know. It's time now. So yeah, we would just recommend everybody start moving on that.
I think Skip stole my playbook for that answer. I was the one word that came to mind, Jeff, when you asked about what we do now there's opportunity. We often look at the threats and we look at the negatives and you have tos with compliance. But Skip's right. There's a fiduciary opportunity there where there is a responsibility for people to do it, but there's also a commercial opportunity to get there first and to be able to show your customers and your shareholders and your employees that security and safety matters, not just the physical security like we talked about earlier from the manufacturing and industrial sense, but the security that you can provide from a data perspective and the importance of anything that you have that's going to be data related as well. And then the last point I would make is we're all doing something that works across a shared vision and a shared mission. And that is at the core of what we do around security and safety. It delves into privacy as well, too. But we're doing this if it's either at a very, very high level. I'm making sure that the government, and we're all trying to help the government be protected from foreign nation states or bad actors, down to our individual concerns and protecting our schools, our environments, our communities, our families. It spans the gamut. So it's a shared desire to make sure our society and way of life can be protected with these new threats and opportunities that AI, machine learning, quantum computing all provide.
So last question, guys. Got to ask this. We've talked about some kind of scary stuff, and you guys work on a little bit different plane, I think, than a lot of other people we've had on the Security Breach podcast. You almost have, to borrow a Terminator reference, you can almost see Judgment Day coming a little bit with a lot of the quantum encryption challenges that are out there. I just got to ask, I mean, how do you sleep at night? How do you feel a sense of calm about things from a cybersecurity perspective, knowing how quickly the bad guys can evolve and adapt to things?
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer that, Jeff. Paul will have his answer, but honestly, I don't sleep that well at night. And AI scares the heck out of me. It really does, because it took no time again for those guys to develop their own GPT, the worm GPT, and all we can do is what we can do, and we just if I had it in my way, this nation would be covered in post-quantum cyber all across every channel. And that would give us the best chance. So in essence, we're behind the curve. And China just announced the world's fastest quantum computer, by the way, as well. So they're moving into quantum, and they may have surpassed us in what we call quantum supremacy. But we need to just keep at it. So it's our nation, it's our future, as Paul said. This is what's at stake for our kids and grandkids. And we either get this right or it's a global difference. This is an existential problem. And so, I don't sleep. We just keep at it, and we go 24/7, and we scream from the top of the mountains, please start looking at this, folks. Get your stuff upgraded. You'll be then we'll sleep better at night. Yeah, if you guys all upgrade, I'll sleep a lot better. I'd counter Skip with a little bit of I'm maybe a little more the optimist. Maybe that's why we make a good team. Okay. He's nervous for the future, but I'm optimistic because I believe that if we can together as a country, and I know that sounds a little hyperbolic, we've faced large challenges in the past, and if we can gather our resources and make people aware of this, we have such a wonderful community, society, country that we live in, that if we can garner the resources and the will to do it, and I think we can, that I think that the future does look bright. So as much as there is a lot to work on out there, I just look at the spirit of what America has done and its sense of innovation and revolutionizing things and getting there. And maybe we aren't there as fast as we need to be, but we will get there if we all just put our shoulder to the grindstone and keep pushing hard. And that's what we're trying to do every day here. And it's important work. And I think that sense of importance is what drives us, whether it be if we're optimistic or if we're nervous. We do know that it's so important that we're working together in that same cause.
Skip and Paul, thanks so much for joining us today. And to learn more about QuSecure, you can check them out at QuSecure.com. That's QuSecure.com. And thanks to you for joining us today. To catch up on past episodes, you can go to manufacturing.net, IEN.com, or mbtmag.com. You can also check Security Breach out wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Amazon, and Overcast. And if you have a cybersecurity story or topic that you'd like to have us explore on Security Breach, you can reach me at jeff@ien.com. For Skip Sanzeri and Paul Fuegner, I'm Jeff Ranke, and this is Security Breach.